the car that was never theirs to give. "Why the taxi, honey? Where's the Audi we gave you?" Grandpa's question caught me at the door before I could even set down my purse. My mother didn't miss a beat. "Oh, that's Brielle's now. She had a greater need for it." She smiled like that settled everything. Grandpa didn't smile back. He turned toward the woman sitting beside my grandmother, Miriam Sloan, his attorney. "Did I authorize a transfer?" "You never signed a thing," Miriam confirmed. The temperature in that room dropped 10 degrees. Brielle's grin evaporated. Mom's hand drifted toward her water glass like she needed something to hold on to. Grandpa's voice came low and steady. "Then whose signature is on that title?" Silence. Then Brielle's husband, Mason, leaned in with a whisper that carried further than he intended. "She told me the Audi was already gone." It was gone, all right, but not the way anyone at that table imagined. They hadn't just taken my car, they'd converted it into a down payment on something twice its value, and a fake signature was already filed away in a lender's folder with my name attached to it. My name is Tessa Hale. By the time I turned 29, I'd absorbed a lesson that took me far too long to name. In my family, being the steady one meant everyone assumed you could soak up another loss without complaint. I worked as an assistant project manager at Larkin Commercial Builders, just outside Philadelphia. My weekdays blurred together. Job site visits, subcontractor meetings, schedule reviews, with a laptop, hard hat, and enough paperwork to weigh down a small trunk. I drove a 12-year-old sedan with a dead air conditioner and a check engine light that lit up like a warning flare every time I pushed past 40 miles. It once died on a highway shoulder an hour before a hospital renovation pitch. I never once asked my family to help me replace it. Walter and June Hale, my grandparents, noticed anyway. For my 29th birthday, they handed me the keys to a certified pre-owned Audi Q5. Dark blue, sensible, fully paid for. Grandpa had the title drawn up in my name alone. His attorney, Miriam Sloan, reviewed every scrap of paperwork and retained copies confirming the car was a completed gift, not some shared family asset that could be reassigned whenever someone else wanted it. "You've spent years making sure everyone else reaches their destination," Grandpa told me. "It's about time you had something that gets you there in one piece." That detail matters, because my mother, Denise, had spent my entire life explaining why my older sister always came first. Tuition help? I could take out loans. Brielle only got one wedding. Car trouble? Brielle needed Mom's SUV for a real estate photo session. Every objection I raised was met with the same dismissive phrase, "Tessa will be fine." 2 years earlier, Grandpa and Grandma had already handed Brielle $45,000 to seed her luxury real estate business and cover childcare. The Audi cost almost exactly the same amount. Grandma considered it balanced giving. Mom framed Brielle's money as an investment in her grandchildren and my car as an extravagance for a woman without a husband. I should have realized she never viewed the Audi as truly mine. 2 months after my birthday, a work assignment sent me to Denver for 5 weeks. Before I flew out, I gave Mom a spare apartment key so she could grab my mail and keep my plants alive. I thought I was trusting her with my home. I didn't know she'd been waiting for access to my documents. 3 weeks in, a text from her popped up during a site meeting. "Audi's recall notice came in. I can swing it by the dealer while you're out of town." I didn't think twice. Fine. Service appointment only, the spare keys in my desk drawer. That was the full scope of what I authorized. The next afternoon, she let herself into my apartment, pocketed the key, and opened the file box where I kept the original title, insurance documents, and a photocopy of my driver's license. The Audi never saw a service bay. Instead, Mom carried the title to Benton Tag and Title Services, where a friend of hers named Carla worked as a notary. On May 18th, Carla certified, on paper, that I had appeared in person and signed the Audi over to Brielle at 6:42 that morning. At 2 o'clock that same afternoon, my badge logged me into a hospital job site in Denver. I was on a recorded project call. I had hotel receipts, timesheets, flight confirmations, and more than a dozen witnesses who could place me 1,400 miles from that notary's desk. None of it stopped the paperwork from going through. 9 days later, the Q5 was registered in Betrayal's name. 4 days after that, she drove it to Ridgeway Audi, where the dealership appraised it at $40,900 and applied it as trade-in credit toward a $92,000 Audi Q8. Mom co-signed the financing because Betrayal's commission income and credit card debt wouldn't carry the loan on their own. So much for needing a safe family vehicle. What my sister actually wanted was a luxury down payment. When I got back to Pennsylvania, I asked Mom for my keys. "The dealer's waiting on a back-ordered part," she said. Next day, it was a software delay. The day after that, a registration snag. She urged me to take ride shares for a few days and swore she'd cover the cost. She never reimbursed a single fare. I spent an entire week crammed into taxi back seats with a hard hat in my lap and a laptop balanced on my knees, while my mother manufactured one excuse after another for why my own car couldn't come home. I was furious, but I still genuinely believed the Audi was sitting behind some service bay, waiting on a part. 3 days later, a cab dropped me outside the restaurant where Grandpa was celebrating his 80th birthday. What I didn't see, what I couldn't see, was Betrayal parking her brand new Q8 around the corner, out of sight, so Grandpa wouldn't connect the dots. But Grandpa saw the taxi pull away before I even reached the private dining room. "Honey, why did you arrive in a cab? What happened to the Audi we gave you for your birthday?" I opened my mouth to answer. Mom beat me to it. "That car belongs to Betrayal now. She had a greater need." Grandpa went still. Then he turned to Miriam Sloan, who'd been sitting beside Grandma with a folder from an earlier estate meeting. She stopped fidgeting with her wine glass. He looked back at me. "Did you sign that transfer?" "I never signed anything." The room shifted. Grandma put her fork down. Betrayal leaned back and crossed her arms. "You have no idea what it costs to raise 2 kids. Having children doesn't transfer ownership of my property," I said. Mom waved her hand. "That money went into Betrayal's business. This was about a safe car for her family." "A safe car that doesn't exist anymore because you turned it into a down payment," I replied. Grandpa asked where the Q5 was. Nobody answered. Grandma repeated the question. Betrayal's knuckles whitened around the key fob hidden beneath the tablecloth. "I traded it," she finally admitted. I stared at her. "You sold my car?" "It was a trade-in. I needed something larger." Mason looked at the key in her grip, then at her face. "You told me Tessa gave it to you willingly." Betrayal's eyes flicked to Mom. Mom said nothing, but the silence said plenty. Miriam stood up. "Not another word about this transaction until we secure the records." She asked me directly whether I had ever signed a title, dealer form, or gift affidavit. I hadn't. She made a phone call, then pulled up a scanned copy of the title transfer on her tablet. My name sat on the seller line. The signature looked close enough to pass a lazy glance. The notary date was May 18th. I opened my work calendar. That morning at 6:42, I had badged into a construction site in Denver. Miriam fixed her gaze on my mother. "This is no longer about who needed the car. Someone notarized Tessa's signature while she was 1,400 miles away." Mason, barely audible, said, "Betrayal told me the trade-in was already cleared before Tessa even flew home." And the last piece clicked into place. The lie hadn't started that evening at the restaurant. It had started weeks before, while I was still in Denver, still trusting the woman who had a key to my apartment. After dinner, Mason took the children home. I went upstairs to Miriam's office with Grandpa, Grandma, and the attorney. No one touched the birthday cake. No one opened presents. Miriam pulled the purchase file first. The sales agreement listed me as the sole owner. The Audi carried no lien. Grandpa had paid the dealer in full, and an email he'd sent that same day read, "Title it solely to Tessa once delivered." Neither Denise nor I should have any control over it. Mom had been copied on that email. She knew. She knew exactly what she didn't own, Miriam said quietly. I called my insurance company. A representative confirmed that the Q5 policy had been canceled after someone reported the car as a family gift. The cancellation request included my driver's license number, my policy details, and my correct mailing address, all of it pulled from the file box in my apartment. Then Ridgeway Audi returned Miriam's call. The dealership confirmed that Betrayal had applied the Q5 as a $40,900 trade-in toward the Q8, and that she had signed a statement asserting the prior owner, Mei, had transferred it voluntarily. The Q8 had been delivered under conditional financing. More importantly, the Q5 hadn't gone to auction yet. It was still sitting on dealer property. Tell them not to move it, I said. Miriam fired off a preservation notice before the call ended, instructing the dealer to retain the Q5, security footage, identification records, title scans, financing documents, and every email connected to the deal. Then we assembled the timeline proving I'd been in Denver on May 18th. Boarding pass, hotel receipts, badge logs, timesheets, a recorded project meeting, and an email from the site superintendent confirming I'd been on location all day. Grandpa studied the evidence and said 5 words. Need is not a signature. My phone buzzed. Mom. Tessa, stop this before you wreck Betrayal's financing. You built her financing with my car. She has 2 children. She needed it more. Needing something doesn't make it yours. You're seriously going to turn in your own family over a car? You forged my name and dressed it up as generosity. Betrayal joined the call. You can always buy another car. Then you should have bought your own. You're destroying my finances, she said, voice cracking. You constructed those finances with my property. She started crying and accused me of punishing her children. Grandma leaned toward the phone. Being a mother does not convert someone else's property into a family asset. Miriam ended the call. 10 minutes later, Mason texted screenshots from Betrayal's phone. One message from Betrayal read, "Once the Q5 is traded, Tessa can't force us to return it." Mom had replied, "She'll be furious, but Grandpa won't let her punish the kids over a car." That erased any remaining claim that this was a misunderstanding. They knew I hadn't consented. They were banking on shame functioning as retroactive permission. Miriam notified the Q8 lender that the down payment originated from disputed property. She contacted the title office, my insurer, and the tag service. She instructed Carla Benton to preserve her notary journal and identification records. I filed a title fraud report, froze my credit, changed my apartment locks, revoked Mom's mail collection access, and relocated every original document to a safe deposit box. Grandpa offered to buy me a new Audi that same night. No, I said. A replacement turns what they did into an accident. He regarded me for a long moment, then nodded. I gave you a car. I never gave anyone permission to redistribute my gifts. By midnight, Ridgeway Audi confirmed the Q5 had been secured in a locked holding area. The next morning, the Q8 lender gave Betrayal 48 hours to replace the full $40,900 or return the vehicle. She didn't have the money, but that wasn't the call that blindsided me. The title office had reviewed Carla's notary entry. According to her own log, she claimed to have verified my identification in person. The signature beside that claim wasn't mine either. Betrayal returned the Q8 the following afternoon. Ridgeway Audi didn't accuse her of stealing it. They simply refused to finalize a financing package built on a trade-in with a contested title. Without $40,900 to replace the equity from my Q5, she had no down payment. The Q8 was gone from her driveway before the sun set. My car stayed locked inside the dealer's secured lot while Miriam navigated the title correction. Ridgeway provided security footage showing Mom and Betrayal arriving together, copies of the identification they'd used, and the statement Betrayal signed claiming I'd transferred the Audi voluntarily. Carla's notary journal triggered the next problem. She'd recorded that I appeared before her on May 18th, presented identification, and signed in her presence. The ID number matched the photocopy Mom had lifted from my apartment, but Carla's own office camera showed no trace of me. It showed my mother handing her a folder. Carla's commission was suspended pending a state investigation, and Benton Tag and Title lost its authorization to process vehicle transfers during the review. I didn't choose her punishment. I simply provided the records proving she'd notarized a signature for a woman who was 1,400 miles away. 3 weeks later, the title office restored the Q5 to my name. The dealership released it after an independent inspection. Betrayal had added 1,300 miles to the odometer. One wheel was scraped. Sticky fingerprints covered the rear seats. Someone had spilled coffee near the center console. None of that was the real damage. Mom stood beside Betrayal in Miriam's conference room when the settlement was laid out. They were responsible for $12,500 in direct costs, my taxis and rental cars, legal and title fees, the inspection, detailing, and wheel repair. Betrayal's payment plan would stretch across 18 months. Mom stared at the number. "You got your car back." "The car came back," I said. "My trust didn't." She folded her arms. "You used my being single as a license to take from me, then branded it motherhood." Betrayal looked hollow without the Q8 key fob in her hand. My children needed reliable transportation. "You had an Explorer that still ran." "It needed repairs." "Then repair it. Needing something doesn't make it yours." Mason had already pulled their credit reports and uncovered $38,000 in credit card debt Betrayal had concealed from him. He required full financial disclosure and moved into his brother's house for several weeks while they started counseling. He apologized to me exactly once. "I should have asked you directly." "Yes," I said, "you should have." Grandpa removed Mom from every financial role she held on his and Grandma's behalf. Her power of attorney was revoked. She lost access to the family document safe, and their trusts were transferred to an independent corporate trustee. He didn't cut off Betrayal's children. The children hadn't signed anything. That distinction mattered to him. Mom called the changes cruel. Grandpa's response was steady. "I gave Tessa a car. I did not give you permission to redistribute my gifts." When he offered to replace the Q5 with a new model, I refused again. I wasn't going to swap evidence for another gift. I kept the car. After the wheel was fixed and the interior cleaned, I drove it back to work. The first time I parked at a job site, I sat behind the wheel longer than I needed to. The Audi didn't feel untouched anymore, but it felt mine. Carla's case worked its way through the proper channels. Mom and Betrayal were barred from contacting the dealer, insurer, or title office on my behalf. Every settlement payment flowed through Miriam. I changed my locks, kept my documents in a safe deposit box, and severed every shared insurance and mailing arrangement. Months later, I drove the Q5 to Grandpa's house. Mom spotted it through the window. "At least everything is back where it belongs," she said. I slid the keys into my pocket. "The car is, the relationships aren't." And for the first time, no one told me I'd be fine. "You have your Audi back," Mom said. "What more do you want?" "Nothing from you," I said. "That's the boundary." Betrayal crossed her arms. "So you're cutting us off over a car? Over the forged signature? The lies? The belief that my life mattered less because I'm single?" Grandpa looked at me. "Are you certain?" "Yes. They returned the vehicle. They didn't return the trust. Then I walked out before anyone could rename theft as